Brent, I just wanted to ask, did you want to add anything to this? Anything you'd like to share?
Mm, no, but I guess I kind of feel it doesn't make any difference, what it is or where it's coming from in a way. If it works, and you figure out a way to help yourself in the future with similar kind of thing, whether it's hypnosis or past life therapy or, angels or crystals or, I mean, whatever it is. I mean, we really don't know exactly like what's behind everything. Um, at least I don't, and I think that it would probably blow our minds completely if we knew. And but we have all these stories to say what it is, and like the hypnotist on the stage that I saw, like he made suggestions to people to be whatever, animals or whatever, and they all went for it, all of them, and they all made complete fools out of themselves if you could look at it that way, or they just were having a great time as a kid. Something was released in that, something really good, and it was maybe a fence around themselves. Well, I can't do this because there's people watching me, and then he gave them the excuse to just be themselves. So I'm seeing all this as sort of, I don't really know what's going on. There are things that it could be that are taking place. I don't think it's so important to understand what that is. Just to know that you can listen to a suggestion from somebody and completely change. You can, if you think you've got this past life that you're working on, then maybe that will help you out in this life. But um, it's hard to put into words what I'm trying to say, but it's I don't think we know what's going on, and I think that there's all these things that happen in life, and there's all these people, we all experience all these things, and we say, okay, because I was doing this, that happened. Now, maybe that's true. Maybe it was a coincidence and it's not true. But nevertheless, something happened that was good. Something happened that was changing, a life-changing event. And whether it came from an angel or it came from belief in angels, in a way, it doesn't really matter. And I don't think we're ever going to know what the truth is anyway. So I would just, if I came across something like that worked, like talking out loud, which is what I do all the time, and it works very well. That's great, and it makes me happy, and it makes me feel like it's worthwhile to do. So everybody's got something that they find that works, and I think that's great. And I think it's good to just sit back and not judge any of it, and just let people be into whatever they're in, and it's working for them, or they wouldn't be there. So I don't know. I
So
don't know what more to say than that.
what you were going through recently, because you had surgery and that, did you do your technique? Did it help you through?
I didn't. There was something I did the technique for recently. Yeah, I've got a lot of stress going with the tax situation I'm in, with a deadline coming, and I did a few days ago talk to myself out loud about that because I was so stressed out, and I just started talking about the way I was feeling, and all of a sudden things started clearing up because I realized, okay, I don't have to have this done until then. I don't have to make this decision until then. And I started seeing the overall picture of what was happening to me. And so I could say, okay, well, I don't need to worry about this at this instant right now. This doesn't need to bother me right now. So it did lift me up to see the whole pattern of what was happening, and it did help. And I was so stressed that I didn't even want to do that. I mean, I was just really stressed out and angry. I was so stressed out, and that's the only thing that came to mind. So I ended up doing it, but it worked really well because it just got me off the emotional horror of it, and got me on to sort of a logical way of looking at the totality of the situation and seeing different avenues and ways to go. So it lifted me up out of the emotional thing. And maybe that's a big part of all this stuff, because we get into our emotional state sometimes and they're very negative, and we can't stand that. I mean, it's really, really bad sometimes. So anything that you can do to get yourself out of that so you can see a little bit more clearly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Sometimes you need to kind of talk it through, right, for yourself to because sometimes we are quiet and we hold it in and it's bigger, right? You know, so yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I just I've today's I've been very busy. Today's the 17th day in a row I worked.
Oh, wow.
And I never do that, but there's just so many things stacking up. I went, and if I don't do something every day, it's just gonna, you know, it's not gonna be good. It's not gonna be good for my clients, for me, and so, and I'm, you know, I'm getting tired, and when you're tired, your emotions kind of start to crash, and I'm like going, oh, this kind of sucks. And it's one thing to, you know, work. It's great if you're staying above it and you're happy and everything. But I was kind of crashing a little bit, and I'm going, oh, my emotional state isn't where I'd like it to be. And so I did, and not much, half a gram of magic mushrooms. And I'm telling you, that was on Saturday, I guess. And I went, oh, well, that made a big difference, made a huge difference. And so I did another half a gram on Sunday. And it was actually, the first dose was a little less, and the second dose, it was the bigger half of a gram. And that's not much. Like, I mean, I could feel it, and I went, okay, you know, I'm really enjoying this. And so yeah, it must have been Saturday, Sunday. And it just totally lifted me right out of the funk, you know. And it wasn't, you know, a huge, great, you know, mind expanding experience. It was just like this little giggle, you know.
Like a little bathroom window, not a big picture window.
Yeah.
Hey, that's kind of nice, that sunshine. Yeah, yeah.
And I went, and everything sort of became magical in my life again. and I went, oh, look at the, you know, I came home the other night, and our neighbors, I guess my neighbor, Tony, he has these twinkly lights all over his property. And that kind of got it going. And there's twinkly lights on about 4 or 5 houses on my street. And, you know, and I'm coming home and I'm going, oh, this is so great. Look at what I have to put up with in my neighborhood. All these beautiful little lights. And I'm like going, oh man, this is so nice. So I took pictures of them all, you know, and I said, wow, yeah, this is, and it was like, if I was in my funky mood, I would have just walked right by everything, went out of it, right? But I kind of got lifted out of that, and now everything's just wonderful, right? And it did made a big difference, put me in a much better headspace, and you know, so.
Do you think our moods put us in an easier way of dealing with things?
Oh, for
Like
sure.
like you're saying, if you're kind of happy, you're going to deal with things a lot easier.
Oh,
And you gave a specific instance so
definitely.
that you can put yourself in, I can put myself in your shoes and actually see, then I can see where he's coming from, you know, the lights and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And usually I can do that. I can just observe it, and I'll just, you know, say, well, it's up to you, Dave. You decide what mood you're going to be and how you're going to approach this. But I think the physical aspect was having something to do with it also. I was tired.
Tired, I'm going to say, yeah.
And,
17 days. You should write a song. I write a CC.
17 days and I ain't had a break. Yeah.
No die.
So that reminded me, you know, that Brent's talking to himself, his technique for that. Mine is similar, and I'm observing my emotions, my mind, catching myself before I, you know, go down a shitty road with all of that, because it's easy to get going down a negative road. But if you're careful and you go, hey, hold on, you don't have to do that. You can change that. You can switch that around and get yourself into a better mood, and then everything usually works better. You're happier at work, or you're happier with people around you, and you know.
On the day of the surgery that I had it in the morning. I came home, and then I was messing around at the computer table, and doing stuff. And then about 3 or 4 in the afternoon, I started feeling so good. Just, it wasn't like a drug high. It was just a sense of well-being. And I was doing all this stuff, and I thought I should be in bed or something. Why am I doing this? Then I remembered the doctor gave me this drug, hypocodone, I think is what it's called. It's a narcotic. You have to be really careful with it. But he gave me that, and I took one just because it would, I just had surgery where they cleaned out the inside of me, pulled some stones out of my urethra and stuff, so there was some pain there. So I went ahead and I did one of these things, and I realized, you know what, it's the drug I just took. That drug made me feel not druggy high, but just I had a beautiful sense of well-being, just about being alive and just about doing things. And so I was taking stuff that I'd put off for ages, and I was focusing my attention on it, and I was cleaning it up, getting it organized. That was really important, and I felt so good doing it. And then I remembered I had spent some time in jail on a drug charge many years ago, and I was around heroin addicts. Those guys would those guys would talk about, they were carpenters, some of them, and they loved to get high on heroin and then go to work because it gave them this sense of well-being. And I thought, if I had this sense of well-being all the time, I wouldn't care about much of anything, because if you're high on life, if you're high on just being alive, and you're feeling really good about that, like that's all that's really necessary, and everything else will sort of take care of itself because you've got the oversight in order to deal with it. But I never took another one of those another hypocodone. I didn't take any more of those because I thought to myself, I will get addicted to this so quickly. 1 week goes by and I'm this way every day. I'm not going to want to quit taking this drug. So I better stop right now. And that's exactly what I
Yeah,
did.
that's the hook for sure. Yeah. But it is good to get lifted out of these things sometimes, but you have to, well, you don't have to do anything, but it behooves you to be careful.
It's the funk you're talking about. It's like
Yeah.
you forget you're alive, and you forget that, you really don't want to die no matter how bad it gets. Life is great. And we focus our attention on stuff that keeps us in that place. Like I think we spend way too much time worrying about things or thinking things should be different than they are, and not being in the present moment. Because right now in the present moment, it's great, because if you're really here in the moment, then you're not daydreaming about all this other stuff that's going on. So
I call it worrying about essentials. Take care of your essentials. Make sure you got a roof over your head, something to eat, where you're going to sleep tonight. After that, everything gets a lot more complicated. But if you go back to where you're comfortable, and that should be close to the heart of your essentials, then you're okay. You can go out the door early in the morning, late at night, whenever it might be, whatever the weather, and you're going to survive because you've got a place to come back to.
So if we could just remember, what it feels like just to be alive, and you can't think about anything unless it's in your mind. So you can't make it up from nothing. But, if we could just figure out a way to remember that more and more, then when things came along that needed our attention, that were, got to organize that, got to do this, then that would be just part of what life would be. And then, and there are people like this that you run into every once in a while. They just seem like they're really happy about, they're nice to be around. And they're good examples for that.
Okay. And Faith, do you have anything you'd like to share? Or Kenny? Thank you, Brent.
No,
Faith?
just listening.
Catherine?
No, I'm just listening. And
Yeah, it kind of explains, just so you know, Dave's my husband. I didn't know he was taking the mushrooms, but it explains a few things, like yesterday and the day before. Because he'd come in with a big grin after he'd been at one of the restaurants watching the football game, and he'd go, "I'm gonna go over and see Tony." I'm going, "Like at this hour? You're going to see Tony?" "Yeah." So right, I'm going. So now I know why. So I guess there's something to be said for. I've only taken mushrooms once, and I was 58 years old.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. It is interesting, I guess, the influence that some drugs can have on us, whether positive or negative. But uh, anyway,
Yeah,
I eat my brownies every day, pretty well.
also helps with sleep for sure, just before I go to bed.
Yeah.
Have a
I've
very
heard of that.
small dose of THC and in a brownie. And
People can't believe how little it takes me to get satisfactorily high. You know, I've been doing them since '68. So I should, you know, by now have a tolerance that's almighty, and I should have to take 14 joints to get stoned. Not me. All I need is a dribble.
Dave?
Catherine, are you in the United States?
Yeah, I'm in the US.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd be interested in that technique, but I don't feel like I have any need, I don't, I don't, if I had, there was something that was really amiss in my life and I was grasping for answers, that's somewhere I would definitely look.
If you had the ailment, you'd be looking for the pill.
Yeah.
Mhm.
My understanding is one thing that quantum healing hypnosis therapists ask is, why did the person's higher self decide to tell them that information or something? Is that something you get into?
Yeah, it's actually it's quite helpful for people to know the correlation between why they were being shown a certain, you know, past life or experience that they had, and what it has to do. It always has to do with their intentions for the session, or, you know, some of the questions that they may have had to bring in, and things that they were wondering about or curious about or dealing with in their life. And it's always to help them.
Yeah, because even things on their diet and that, sometimes they're told,
Mhm.
remove this from your diet, try this and all that. Because I was listening to Allison Coe, because she'll ask her clients, can I transcribe yours, right? And
Mhm.
then she'll read it online. But they said stuff like dairy and cheese and all that. And
Yeah.
I thought, wow, like when I cut that out of my diet, it made a big difference. It
Mhm.
really improved my health. Like just hearing that, because I went, you know what, that that makes sense to me, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's
yeah,
supposed to.
anything, yeah, that can help. And what did you do during COVID? Like or how did you deal with clients then? Was it online or?
You can't really do it online. The quantum, the Dolores Cannon method. But there are people that do a like a hybrid method that is similar to Dolores's, only they do it online, and but they don't call it quantum healing hypnosis technique. They call it quantum healing or beyond quantum healing, and that's, you know, and they also can bring in other modalities with that. They can bring in Reiki, or if they do channeling, or, you know what I mean? Like they can do their own things along with it. With that, it gives you more freedom. So
Yeah,
there,
it's amazing. It's an amazing field, right? Because it's taken them out of these bodies, these things,
yeah,
and really giving them the bigger picture of things, right?
oh yeah,
Their lives. Yeah.
it's amazing. It's fascinating, and everybody's so unique, you know. And I just love to hear people's stories and what they're coming in for a session for. I mean, and it spans, you know, it can be just curiosity about it. It could be, you know, people that are going through really huge life transitions and need
Yeah.
some answers, you know, and some help.
Yes, and even like professionals go for it, right? Engineers and
Mhm.
people in the sciences and all that will go for this. And they're actually often told, yes, you came here to invent this or whatever, right? So
Oh yeah,
it's really quite the field to explore.
yeah. It's really really cool. I love it.
Okay, we
Reminds
have
me, when something you said, Catherine, like, past life, but you said life between lives. And that was a book I read. Um, was it
Michael
Newton?
Newton. Michael Newton, I think.
Michael Newton.
Yeah, well, he deals with the soul plan, and, you know, what you planned before you incarnated
Yeah.
the body and stuff like that.
very interesting. And also Robert Monroe, his Far Journeys, and which I just found another copy of that book. And so, yeah, that one just popped into my life again.
Yeah, his work is amazing too.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Monroe Institute, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Catherine, you believe that like we're individuals and we come back and forth in life, and that we have purposes, and that we give ourselves what that purpose is. Is that what you believe?
And that we what? We get
Give ourselves the purpose for what we, in other words, we decide in advance what we want to experience during a given lifetime, and so then we incarnate and have that experience, and we get that from ourselves, telling us to ourselves, like I would just say, oh, I haven't been a rock star, I think I'll be a rock star in this next life. We're the ones that are doing that, not something else.
Yeah, I don't believe that we're like something else is making us come here. I think it's a choice.
Is that our soul?
Yeah, I think,
All it is and isn't us?
no, I'm not saying that there's nothing else. You know, I believe in God, I believe in a higher power, but I believe that we make our, this is my own, you know, my own belief. I respect everybody else's, but I have discovered through my own journey that, you know, I chose my challenges, I chose everything. I chose my parents before I came here, my siblings, my family life, my early upbringing, where I would live, who I would marry, who I would divorce.
So what
You know?
what gets us to choose certain things? I mean, it sounds like a play or something. Like I want to play the part of this
Yeah,
lifetime,
well, it
and
is. That's what it, yeah.
yeah, because I discover what I like in life by being involved with it or finding out about it. You know,
Mm.
I discovered psychedelics were fun to do once in a while because I heard about them and thought, okay, I'll try that out. But I didn't do that except for the fact I had a desire to do that, but I don't have any recollection or knowledge about where those desires come from, and they don't seem to come from me at all. They seem to just appear in my consciousness.
Mm.
And it's like, in other words, I'm not the one that's determining what I'm thinking about. I'm not the one that's determining what I'm feeling. I wake up and discover day by day in the moment how I feel, and then I go in the direction towards fulfilling that, or I go away from it because it doesn't, grab me, or it looks silly or whatever. And that just seems that desire that's arising when it does is what is controlling me.
Mhm.
Because why would I want to do anything specific unless there was a desire in me to do it? And I'm not creating that desire if I don't have it. I'm not going, I don't feel like doing this, so I'm going to create a desire to want to do this. I never do that either. So
Right.
I'm fine. It's hard for me to understand, like, me deciding, wanting a particular set of parents. And the
Mhm.
ones that I had they weren't ready to have kids, for one thing. I mean, it was positive and negative, both. And if I'd had an idea about what I really wanted, I wouldn't have picked them. So so the idea that I'm picking and choosing things like that, to me, doesn't jive
Yeah.
at all with what I know about myself. So I'm just wondering why, where did you get that, and why do you believe it?
Well, I think because I think we only use a small portion of our brain while we're here, but on a higher level, when we're totally tapped into, the all, and we're seeing ourselves not as a human being with a personality, but we're actually our higher self, our soul aspect. We can look at things in a different way and not so personally, So like in this human body, I think to myself, what the hell was I thinking? Right? If I planned this, because my life hasn't been easy either. What the hell was I thinking? Right? But actually everything that I have been through in my life has prepared me for my journey now. You know, it was all like schooling. It was all part of my growing into this part of my development and this part of my evolution. So I know it can be a little hard to take, especially if you're in the midst of a lot of pain and a lot of turmoil, because it doesn't make sense. Like, why would we choose that, you know? But I do believe that we do choose it. And I believe we choose it with the knowing that we can grow through it and we can learn and evolve and become better than we were, you know? So, you know, people that have been through a lot of challenges in their life, like people that have been abused or, you know, have had a lot of difficulty like that, you know, like you'd say, like, why would somebody choose that? Well, maybe that soul wanted to come in and experience something that would give them such a capacity to have empathy, deep empathy for others. And the only way that they could really understand that, you know, within themselves was to experience what it was like to be abused by somebody. I know it sounds crazy, but
we need that. Do we need the total spectrum of what life is all about? I think so. We can't be one-sided about it. You're not going to find a stairway to heaven that's made out of gold. If you get there, you got a lot of different stairways to use.
yep,
A lot of different learnings to do.
a lot of different learnings. Yep.
Do
Yeah,
you
Sorry, Brent. Keep going.
do you believe what you're saying because it sounds interesting, or do you believe it because you had an experience that proved to you that it was true?
Well, I had experience through my own consciousness that showed me different things. And one of them was the example that I gave earlier about my own quantum healing experience when I went for quantum healing. And I was shown that I had a similar experience in a different lifetime before this one. And there were parallels. So then I chose to come into this life, and the other person chose to come in and learn different lessons, but similar events that happened in other lives. So that's how I realized that I chose to come in and experience that.
it reminds me of something I learned trying to deal. Like I never had any real serious drug problems, but something compelled me to start going to NA meetings. I kind of wanted to understand more about addiction, my own use. I didn't ever get into narcotics, but what I learned through going to meetings was that, especially within that field, they felt the best counselors or the best people to help others with the problems were people who had those addictions or were dealing with those addictions also. So in a similar way, like you're saying, so you'd have this greater empathy for somebody who'd had been abused. You wouldn't know what that was like until you had that experience yourself. And again, I guess it's about us reincarnating to help others, and you're coming with a bag of tools, I guess, so to speak, through these experiences, through our soul development, that you come with some of these things to help.
Yeah.
Nothing like being a teacher in the school of hard knocks.
Yeah.
We're all students and we're all teachers.
Are we now? Yeah.
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 Could it be that some people, and I'm thinking of Brent's situation, some souls come in and they didn't have a choice, right? They did not choose their parents, but they are forced to reincarnate. They're forced to come here. You think everything's a choice, I guess. You don't think this is some sort of prison planet and we're we're all okay?
No, because I believe there, God is pure love.
I
Yeah.
think we're all hybrids.
God would not force, there's no forcing. God is pure love. And so
I don't know if God's got that much to do with it when you're talking about, if you might be, talking about priming of a planet. A lot of us think that mankind is not just man himself, it's what's happened before him very much and what's going to happen in the future. There's been effects in our life that we have no idea about. The big reason why the past is always trying to be hidden is because nobody wants us to ask those questions. And not many of us get close to even asking them until we're inquisitive enough to go find out where the hell we all came from. And there's a lot of questions, a lot of answers to that when you go looking, whether it's on shitty old Google or even in old textbooks. You're not going to get much of a response, of an honest answer. And you're going to have to dig deep because there's a lot of mysteries that we just don't know about. And when I say that, I'm enticing you guys to go look for yourself. I don't know half of them. I don't know a quarter of them. But it's amazing what our past has been compared to what we're taught it's been. And our indoctrination is so deep that it's not that we don't want to go looking. It's as if we don't have to because we already know. And we don't.
Well, I guess I look at it this way. If they say, okay, you're going to go down there and you're going to, have to work hard all your life, pay taxes, maybe be poor at some point, blah, 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 on and on and on. Aren't you anxious to get down there? No way. I would say, no, I'm not going down there.
But we don't have the consciousness that I think Catherine's talking about right now. We have it after we're not, bodies in between lives. Then there's a different kind of consciousness that's there, right, Catherine?
Yeah.
So we don't get to choose.
Okay, but what about, I've been reading the Nag Hammadi library. These were the texts found in Egypt, right?
uh-huh.
In 1945 and probably buried about 400 AD, right? And at one point they talk about souls that would leave, this earth and go into the underworld, and they're given the water of forgetfulness, right? And I thought, that's always been my problem with Buddhism, right? I'd say, well, and they talk about reincarnation and other religions too talk about it. I go, I don't get it. Like, why do they say this is a school? And yet we forget everything from a previous life when we have to come in.
Why would we leave everything behind? Why can't we take
It
something?
doesn't make sense to me. What kind of school is that? Right?
Well, maybe we're supposed to try to remember who we really are in this.
But what if the system is set up to make certain we don't remember who we are?
Whose choice is that?
Well, that's what I'd like to know. Like, is there something behind all this that we don't know about? I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, there's our quantum healing helpers that are going to get us there to find that out.
Well, it's not only quantum healing. I mean,
No.
there's so many ways to discover who
Yeah.
we all really are, right?
Yeah.
With the inner work and our own connection to our divinity and our unique relationship to source, to God, to our higher selves.
Mhm.
And, people that are on the spiritual path are seeking to learn more about that connection. So that's, to me, I feel that's why we come here, to learn who we are and that we are not victims. Or I'll just speak for myself, that I'm not a victim to what my upbringing was, or to what my earlier life was, or to what the government says, or on and on and on. I can make my own choices. And
Do you believe in your life as a single entity and that you are only who you are, and once you die, you no longer stay that way, you're just gone? Or do you think there is an extension each time we die that could possibly be who we are, but we don't get to remember who we were. We just keep going on and on.
Well, I think when we're not in human form, we have a much larger capacity to remember all of our, because I believe we're all multifaceted, we're all multidimensional beings. We've had lives on other planets, we've been other beings, we've been forever. We can't destroy energy. So I believe we go on. We don't.
Does our being stay the same and continue no matter what, with or without us?
Does our being? Yeah, I believe we do.
We are that being.
Yeah.
When we die, you're saying when we die, we don't die. We're part of the universe, and we won't go on as ourselves, but we'll still be ourselves in that being.
Yeah, I believe where, you know, we have this essence that continues on from life to life. And then what is this? Like, you know, I've just sort of come to terms with this fairly recently. And so, you know, some of us are kind of at odds with this body, with this, some people like to call it a space suit or, you know, biological computer, whatever. And if you really believe that this isn't you, this, you know, this here, it's not who you really are, but you have a sense of who you really are. There's something deeper that you carry that is separate from this body. So why am I in this body? So I look around, you know, this reality. I have a real appreciation for what I see. And I really like looking at trees and flowers and the sky and animals. And I have this deep connection and a respect, or I think that just engaging with these things
fulfills you.
Well, it also fulfills them, right? That it gives them purpose.
They're doing the same thing you are. They're just as much of a creature as you are.
So I think that, well, why are you staring at that tree? I says, well, because it needs me to, right? There's a relationship there. It does better if I pay attention to it. So I'm thinking about my body the same way. I don't think of it as me, but I think of it as, let's just think of it as the same way I would think of a tree. So I look at it, and I appreciate it, and I go, wow, this is an amazing thing, right? This is a truly amazing mechanism, creation, whatever. I don't really know where it comes from, but here I am, right? I'm in it, I'm out of it. You know, it is me, it's not me. It's not my true self, but isn't it amazing? And I must say, I feel much better about my body, and it seems to be reacting in a really well, in a good way, because of that shift in attitude, right?
Your shroomies.
But I don't really, no, this is before the shrooms. This is way before the shrooms. I've been like going, you know, yeah, look at, this is an amazing body, and I'm not, you know, it's not an ego thing. It's just wow, look at this, right? I could be like some piece of slime on another planet, right? And if I had that, consciousness that I'm outside of this, I can look at it from within and without, but appreciate it not as myself, but as this interesting, amazing creation. You know, it just it really. I have some minor health issues, and they seem to have gotten better since I started to really appreciate this body as not myself, but as an amazing thing.
That's great.
You don't take credit for it. It's part of you.
It's,
you know, that's important. When I had my elbow broken in Cairo in 2014.
But you have elbow broken?
Yeah, so that I had to have surgery on it, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna do some stuff, and I was following Jasmine at that time, who is into prana, living on prana now, but she does a body love meditation, and I did that repeatedly, and then I still do it once in a while, but it really does help with healing and you are giving your attention to your body and showing appreciation for it, because often, you know, society teaches us that our body is our enemy, right? You know, but it really had a great impact. So Dave's technique is great, right? You know,
That
giving
is great.
attention.
Thank
That
you for
relates to
reminding
me.
of that. Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Just getting tipped upside down on my head and separating my shoulder. And I was working construction, but I was working fairly physical construction. And I didn't think I could give up the job. And as a result, kept working and didn't listen to my body, didn't think it was a temple. I mean, it's tough to be out there in the world and have to make a living. And I probably could have borrowed and whatnot and kept by and said to myself, yeah, you look after your body, you fool. You know, if you don't, you're not going to have it for long. But I didn't. I kept working. And as a result, I've got a wonky shoulder. You know, it's never going to be the same. And it could have been a lot better, I think. I should have taken care of it. Sorry to interject. I just wanted to.
yeah, but I also want to add this, Barry. I want to add this.
Yeah,
Our bodies are very forgiving, right? So even if it's something that happened in the past, you can still communicate to your body to heal.
This is my good shoulder, the one that I separated. My other one is my Zamboni shoulder, and that's the one I can't, that keeps me from swimming and going in the pool today. But that's another injury. So it's stackable. There's always lots of injuries you're going to have as you get through life.
So we're down to last. So, Ken?
I had a teacher, my most beloved teacher, who taught that we have no free choice. If we want free choice, we have to work like crazy to get it. And one of the reasons for that is because of the mechanical nature of our body. So what happens if you decide you want to not eat or not drink? Your body reacts to that. And if you don't want to sleep, I mean, the body has certain demands, and if we want to stay alive, we obey it. We obey it. So we don't have a choice. So in some of these matters, so when we hypothecate the existence of a higher self or a soul, it's possible that it might have rules to live by too, in the same way that our body does. In fact, this is the subject of my current book that I'm trying to piece together. If there is such a thing as a higher self or a soul, what are its rules? Does it have any rules? Does it speak a language? Does it speak? Does it have thoughts? Or is it one of its main characteristics the absence of thoughts? So it's kind of cool that when we project our alive self, like we are now, into our death, okay, now the body's dead, but whatever that higher self is that we hypothecate, we think we know what it is. I wonder if we really do. And if we really do, how mechanical is it?
May just be part of our ego.
That ego is pretty big.
We need that. I'm not saying you're getting that, but we need it to exist just for our self-gratification, for our want or our need to feel existence. It's very important no matter what. But
so that ego has rules, and it's in charge of the survival of the body and the well-being of the body. But it's not in charge of your body. My ego is in charge of my body. And sometimes, under certain circumstances, I could be doing damage to your body to protect my body. You know, I imagine what goes on in wartime, and some of this, when there's starvation and famine and I mean, these horrible experiences that human beings have. Sometimes that ego takes over, and we just look after number one, and to hell with everyone else. So I always get confused when we have talks like we had today, where we have scenarios and stories about what we believe, but it goes way too fast and too far for me, because there's so many questions I have to say. Well, is there really a soul, or is there really a higher self?
Don't be confused. It's really not easy, because this is not what we usually talk about. That's all that's different. This is a bit more basic to human beings in general. This isn't just what's the weather like. So yeah, it's nice to be here and absorb and try to absorb all this, but it's difficult to do, I know.
The problem is we evolved from like a single cell to now. What happens is at some point this thing that we are becomes conscious. And at first it doesn't become conscious of itself, it just becomes conscious of other things. And then it gets deep enough or dense enough or evolved enough to where now it perceives its own existence. So there's an image of something that is much deeper than we know, that is ourselves, that arises within this consciousness we have and says, that's me. In other words, I'm looking at myself right now on the screen. That's an image, easily recognizable. Anything that I have in my mind as to who I am, that is also an image, because I don't know the totality of myself. I only know a fraction of what that is. We're all in the same boat on this. So we have a tendency sometimes to jump to extremes and think we know a lot more than we really do, because that's the way we would like to see things. But the truth is, whoever I am, only a sliver of it is in my awareness. And most of the time I'm not even thinking about it. I'm just trying to maneuver myself in life. So I think that's the dilemma that we all face. And we're trying to figure out like who we are. We'd love to know the details and the total story of who or what we are, but it's simply not available to us. And we're going to have to just live with that and try and remember that, because it's confusing and lots of people have different ideas about it, and you like your idea to be better than somebody else's idea sometimes, and there's an argument that ensues or whatever. So anyway, it's just a dilemma that I think whatever we are that's conscious has as because of what it is, and it's probably never going to know itself in its complete totality.
I kind of hope you're wrong, Brent. But I have to tend to, lean towards that thought. But maybe this is what we're doing. This is what the sages and the mystics and all through our time have been doing. We're trying to reach the ultimate, and maybe, hopefully, eventually we're going to get there. Maybe that's what we're doing. We're all helping each other along the way through, who knows, all these questions.
Helping each other, using each other, whatever it happens to be in the moment.
That's what I'm kind of hoping. Like Ram Dass said, I think we're just all helping each other home.
Well, if we have the intention to help each other, good for us. Now it's going to happen. But I'm sorry, that ego, and it's all the others, it's not us. Their egos. I'm sorry.
We gotta always hear them.
It's all about number one here.
You're such an egotist. I can't believe it.
Well, thank you.
I'd like to think it's helping and not, like Brent says, is hindering. I would like to think that, no matter which side of the coin you happen to think you're on, at least you can cheer for both sides. Whatever it works out, it works out. And hopefully whoever is the good side is going to win. But don't leave somebody in the past just because they happen to be on the wrong side of the coin.
Well, thank you, everyone. That was a great discussion tonight. Great open forum. Thank you, Catherine, for joining us. I hope you'll join us again.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank
you. Every Tuesday now. We for a while before the summer we were meeting on Wednesday nights, so now it's every Tuesday at 7. So.
Oh, okay.
Please join us.
It was nice to meet you, Catherine.
Oh, it was nice to meet you all, and I don't know if I can make it. Well, wait a minute. Let me think about this. Next, because I also run a couple of meetup groups, so And
Oh.
my night is Tuesday, the first
Oh,
Tuesday of the month. But my groups are at 7 o'clock Eastern time. So it's, I still may be able, because you guys are 10 o'clock my time.
Mhm.
I still may be able to make your groups more than I thought.
yeah. Well, great. It was wonderful. Thank you for sharing,
Thank
especially with quantum healing hypnosis. I mean, I've been fascinated by that. So it's really
Yeah, I
nice
love
to
to
hear about.
share about that, and it's yeah, it's
Yeah.
my pleasure. And
Just choose to do it, Catherine.
what was
Choose
that?
to do it.
Just choose to do it.
Just choose.
Choose the 4 and 7 and 10 and all the rest of them.
And Brent, it's wonderful to have you back
Yeah,
Thank you.
joining
Good to
us. We
see
really
you.
miss you. So,
good to see everybody.
Yeah, it was nice to meet all of you.
all right. Have
All
a good
right.
night.
Night.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.